Hello, fellow kind of critics. Now it's time to take a look at Assassination Nation and a house with a clock in its walls. And no Ryan again, so let's get started. Nothing as polarizing and exploitative since the last Purge movie has yet to release that wants to collectively piss people off, but also really give the outsider perspective of a person's opposite ideals. Assassination Nation may not always feel like it lands on its feet with its interesting premise, but it masterfully balances story, characters, and social commentary without feeling like it's being preachy or self-righteous. A dark comedy with a purpose, rather than being an entertainment piece on our world today, yet it does both on such a natural way. If it sounds like I'm sucking the dick out of this movie, it's because I am. This is my clear frontrunner into my top 10 films of this year. In my theater, I saw about two other people and felt like there's no surprise because a lot of elements were working against this movie. I mean, this marketing made it look like an Antifa, feminism, and several other far left wing propaganda wrapped into one that was coupled with teenagers with guns and swords. Something that maybe not a lot of people feel like seeing when they see it a lot more often on the news. But I think watching something different is always what people should be experiencing with their movies, and this should have really been given a chance. After all, it's not like really good movies with risky premises have been overlooking at all this year. Sorry to bother you. Directed by Sam Levinson, who has been making strides as a director and writer with a show like The Wizard of Lies and movies like Another Happy Day. He's certainly up and coming that uses bold camera work and dreamlike editing that captures what seems like a satirical take on social media, politics, taboos, races, rape, sexism, and transphobia. If anything, this is basically previewed in the first 5 minutes as a trigger warning. There's nothing subtle at all about this film and the many topics discussed, and what better way to talk about these things than placing all of these ideas in a small town called Salem, with four local high school students played by Odessa Young, Suki Waterhouse, Hari Neff, and Abra, not the Pokemon. Young really is the main protagonist that is supposed to be the neutral teenage girl that likes to feel divisive, sexually open, and is an artist. But the real actress that steals the show is Harry Neff, who plays the transsexual friend of the gang that is not only felt like genuine, but not endearing. And that's not actually a bad thing. It's actually a good thing because the story never feels unnatural by making a character like this the centerpiece of the story. Just a part that really begins, like, has its own plot line, and it felt normal, as if the story was like, don't worry, her being transsexual is not a marketing gimmick nor an endearing piece that we want to completely put in the forefront. It's just a part of the story, and I hope more movies really show this dark and serious subject matter that many transsexuals have to deal with. And it actually gave me to care about this character a lot more than the other ones. Once the real setup of the story begins and the local residents get their phones hacked, things really start cranking up to this almost violent and angry mob mentality that is not only propelled by teen angst, but millennials and the older generations of the past. We get montages of people mocking others to the point of suicide, as well as misinterpret a situation that ruins another person's entire life, basically. It's really crazy how this movie treats both sides of being the problem without feeling disingenuous. If there's one thing that screws over the whole movie for me, it's that ending. Let's just say if you're going to reach the top of this epic battle of guns and explosions, only to what seems like run out of the budget and then with a whimper, then I guess that's where the themes and the messages felt like it got in the way of what made this movie great. And that's the characters, drama, and direction. I just think that that's the point where most people who like this movie may have felt turned off and cheated on, especially if that's how the marketing made this film out like. But 5 out of 6 stars, give it a try, and see why something entertaining is actually worth discussing. Yeah, another one of these movies, the kind of movie that attempts to replicate the success of Harry Potter, but doesn't realize that making a good movie is probably the first step in all of this. We'll add it to the list with The Darkest Minds, Maze Runner, Hunger Games, Fifth Wave, Divergent, A Wrinkle in Time, Miss Peregrine, and Vampire Comedy, and Twilight. A House with a Clock in Its Walls is based on the 1973 novel of the same name that follows the boy who is different than everyone else and learns that it's okay to be different with the help of Jack Black and Kate Blanchett, who teach him magic and stuff. What really caught my attention about this movie is how they got Eli Roth, master of gore and guts of movies like Hostel, Cabin Fever, and The Green Inferno, to direct a kids movie. That's not even the weird part, because I've learned that after watching it, I think he should really start doing more kids movies, because the amount of satanic and demonic iconography, as well as disturbing scenes, made me wonder if the ratings board members were on vacation that day. Seriously, I guess restraining Eli Roth to cater to children gives us like really thrilling and exciting kids movies that surprisingly works on a few levels and might even let the adults enjoy those times from the 80s where they got to enjoy a less restrictive kids film. However, the standard plot still stands, and this movie really feels like the John Carter of magical boy movies, because just like John Carter, which was based on the earliest works of sci-fi that would later inspire the likes of Star Wars, A House with a Clock in Its Walls is a good book that would later inspire books and media like Harry Potter, and now we're getting it this year, because hopefully people figure that out. But nope, never works, does it? But I think YA audiences should give this movie a chance because, like the movie Ms. Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, they get rid of the bullshit very quickly. Rather than spend a good 10 minutes to talk about how the kid's parents died, we get straight to Jack Black, who is playing Jack Black from the mid 2000s. Brendan, here's the Jack Black checklist you should be making, which includes Jack Black laughing loudly, Jack Black giving the crazy eyes, and Jack Black playing some kind of instrument, usually a guitar, but this time they have him playing a saxophone. The only thing missing is Jack Black's usual singing a song in the middle of the film, but I think the thing that what really sells this movie is its sense of wonder and whimsy once we actually enter the house with a clock within its walls. The attention to detail and sense of magic is super interesting, not to mention that the special effects never felt too heavy or being the real crutch of the film. They were subtle enough to work and mixed well with some of the more practical effects. Now, the reason why I haven't talked about the main character, the Harry Potter of this story, is because I feel like the child actor, Owen Vaccaro, the boy from Daddy's Home, just can feel like less talented Asa Butterfield. I mean, he does his best with what basic quirky kid arc he's playing, but when you get older talent like Black and Blanchett, he really doesn't own every scene, and yet I found the character kind of endearing in the end, I guess. In fact, the points where he goes to school and gets bullied for being different actually felt very tacked on, especially when you realize the whole film takes place in the 1950s, and yet the school, the background, and the city feels like a common stock city that could have easily been adapted to our time if they removed all the period piece iconography. If anything, the potential and ramifications of this taking place after the Great War felt wasted and unsurprisingly probably felt more present in the book. As much as Roth got away with the whole demon, witches, and warlock magic, the trappings of being a kids movie like Nickelodeon-sponsored kid movie are even more present towards the last half of the film, which is coupled with sidekick, pet, stock sounds, and poop jokes. The same poop joke repeated 4 times. Even so, I really like the sense of wonder and risky journey that the kids movie like this really takes, and I think there's plenty to enjoy, whether an adult or a child. I mean, Roth surely has created a coherent plot for the first time that uses the best chemistry with its stars, Blanchett and Black. If it feels familiar and forgettable, I don't blame you, but hey, first place in the box office and being Roth's best movie to gross to date, well, isn't much of a bad thing, I guess. 4 out of 6 stars, it's fairly decent among the last 8 or 10 YA movies out there.